My name is Daniel Ezra Caldwell. They've called me Ezra since I was about 2. I landed 12 years ago here in Harlem, and I build custom steel bicycles. I grew up in southern Vermont in a town called Putney, and my dad was a custom hardwood furniture maker. We were broke when I was young, and the wood shop was what my older brother and I had to play in. I started using a table saw when I was 8, and it was sheer boredom that motivated it more than anything else. Growing up with not a lot to do was really instrumental in me developing a lot of skills, basically. I've always been very good at things for a beginner. I do learn pretty quickly, and I can fake it pretty well. And where my stamina kind of runs out is when you get to the point of understanding a process or something like that, that it's going to take serious work to get any better at it. And typically that's when I have, with just about everything I've done, it's where I've really started to kind of flag and maybe lose interest. And so for me, it's always been a real struggle to get past the point where I'm pretty good for a beginner, to get into the point where I'm actually good. No matter how good you are for a beginner, it's like, that's not the essence of it. I mean, it's easy to be impressed with people who learn fast, but I think you really do have to put some time in to actually get to any kind of, fundamental level of ability with anything. Certainly for me, actually making stuff has always been the drive. I went to the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and I thought I was going there to study industrial design. I was completely sort of disenchanted with the idea of industrial design once I saw that it was mostly molding stuff out of styrofoam and doing stuff on the computer. And so I had no idea what to do. And one night somebody dared me to take a dance class, and I did. And left feeling great and thought that if I was doing that for 18 hours a week instead of color theory, I'd be really happy. And so I went to the department office the next day and said I'd like to be a dance major. And the woman at the desk asked me if I'd ever danced before. And I said, yeah, I took a class last night. I was too stupid or didn't embarrass easily enough, or I'm not sure what, but I ended up staying. The whole dance thing, it really did take me quite a number of years to realize that it wasn't an art form that I liked very much. But at that point, I had a pretty established teaching career. I tried to leave dance about 4 years before I actually managed to finally do it. I went to the director of the school and said, look, I'm a fraud. I don't even like this art form. I don't know why I'm teaching. I should be out of here. And she said, well, what if we offered you a salary? And, I thought, okay, well, I'm listening. And they ended up offering me a living wage to teach dance only 9.5 hours a week. So I've got all this other time. I was riding bicycles for transportation at that point. And more of my students were liking the idea of being bike commuters and would kind of ask me what kind of bike to get. And I spent a lot of time finding bikes that could be tweaked in certain ways to be perfect for a certain person and their needs. And so I became kind of a bike stylist. I started putting bikes together for people. So by the time I finally extricated myself from the dance world, it was a total leap and the bridge will appear sort of moment. It just kind of, as soon as I actually committed to leaving that world, I kind of knew that not just assembling bikes for people and building accessories for them, but actually building bikes from start to finish was something that I wanted to do. Part of the real dissatisfaction with making dance was that I didn't like much dance that was out there, so I wasn't making stuff inside a genre that I had all that much respect for or interest in. I thought I made pretty good stuff for dance, but I definitely felt pretty unfulfilled. The thing that's really kind of wonderful about making bikes is that I have a lot of respect for people who make bikes. There are a lot of bike builders out there who I think make beautiful work. I mean, like really nice art, really good art. And so that's pretty exciting to be working in a form where there are people that I look up to. About a year after I started building bikes, I was diagnosed with rectal cancer. I mean, of all the cancers you get as a bike builder, it's kind of a kick in the teeth. It's made it really tricky because I haven't been healthy for more than about 8 months at a time since then. And then sort of to add to the existential crisis is the issue that my doctor at this point doesn't even want me riding a bike. The day that I was diagnosed, I rode to this oncologist's office to start figuring out how we were going to treat this thing. And he suggested that, he wanted to get me a PET scan right away. I said, yeah, that's no problem. I can just ride over there. He said, ride over there? I said, yeah, on a bike. We came here on bikes. He said, you can't ride a bike. I said, what do you mean I can't? He's like, you can't ride a bike. I'm sorry. I said, how am I going to get home? So he made me promise that after the ride home, I wouldn't ride a bike anymore. So it was a bit of a bizarre first day of, it's like dealing first with the issue that, I had this potentially terminal illness, but that I also wasn't going to be allowed to ride a bike. I went back to him the next week and asked for a clarification about, riding the bike. I said, is it a level of activity? I mean, you don't want me to be sort of extending myself so much. You don't want me so active. He said, no, activity is great. I don't want you sitting on a bike seat. I mean, the tumor is right there, and I don't want you putting pressure on this tumor. I said, oh, so it's the bike seat? He's like, yeah. I said, what if I built a bike with no seat? And so I built this thing, started it the next day and ended up riding the assless bike to chemo and radiation treatments. That was sort of a triumphant fuck you to build a bike with no seat and keep on riding. But at this point, it's like, it's not fun. It allowed me to keep riding, but it made riding kind of esoteric form of torture. It's kind of tough at this point to be a bike builder who doesn't really ride bikes. It's hard to be as totally in love with them as I once was. During the periods that I was being treated, I was taking self-portraits. Really what it kind of became was a running documentation of what was going on. And it was really helpful for me because it meant that I could have some sort of record of what I was going through. There's nothing like a crisis to make you focus, think clearly, and be able to present what you know in that moment. I guess one of the things is you get this wonderful gift if you've been, faced some kind of terminal illness of learning in a real visceral way that lesson about every day being really important and, living like you could die tomorrow and all that kind of stuff. The problem with that in sort of reality is that you can't actually do that because it's just fucking irresponsible. So you have a brush with death, or you have to think about dying because you have something that can kill you. You think that, oh, well, this gives me, this makes me realize how important just, your experience and enjoying life and all that kind of stuff is. And yet, so what do? You buy a motorcycle and a large format camera and go ride around and take photographs, and 2 years later haven't died yet and have no money, and it's just like, it's the kind of thing where it's like, oh yeah, live like you're gonna die tomorrow. It's like, well, yeah, but what happens if you don't? That's the reality, is that it's like, well, I haven't died yet. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is just kind of figuring out how to reconcile the notion that I'm very aware that anything could happen. And in order to figure out where to go with the business and with making bikes and everything else, I have to kind of behave as though I'm not going to die next year. I have to behave as though this is something that actually has a future, and that so that's the thing that's difficult to kind of reconcile, is just how do you get your head around that. The nice thing about taking a daily self-portrait is that it kind of evolves with you, and it's you that day. These things are all a moment in time. You know, and that any portrait is only that moment in time.